today. A German spying scandal, a major leak from a DNA sample database, and the Slovak reject data retention. Your host is Rick Falkbinger, and this is Liberties Report.
This report is presented by Private Internet Access.
Good evening and welcome to Liberties Report Week 18, 2015. In Germany, there is a spying scandal unfolding. The German spy agency has been found to collaborate with the NSA in the United States in order to spy on other European interests. The French presidency, the French foreign ministry, and even the European Commission. You don't say! This isn't news. What is news is that this is reaching old media. We know that the intelligence community has routinely lied to every single official who has been questioning them. This is not unique to the German spying agency. We've seen this in the US, we've seen this in Sweden, we've seen this everywhere it has been in the spotlight. And all of them, without exception, are in one capacity or another, reporting to the United States NSA and selling out their own citizens. The usual method is that they're spying on their neighbors. Everybody's spying on their neighbors and reporting to the NSA, who therefore gets the full picture. The Swedish FRA, for example, deliberately withheld crucial information about Soviet anti-ship missiles, while a defense for such missiles was being developed to protect Swedish naval troops, marine troops. And so, the Swedish spying agency would rather protect the NSA than Swedish troops. And that tells you a little bit of how deep this rabbit hole goes. In this case, the German BND, the Bundesnachrichtendienst, roughly translating to Federal Information Service or Federal News Service, which reports directly to the Chancellor, to Chancellor Angela Merkel, has been found spying on the European Commission on behalf of the US NSA. And to give the people in the United States a little bit of insight into just how outrageous this is, it is the equivalent of if the Idaho Police Department was found wiretapping the White House and the US President on behalf of China. If the Idaho or Maryland Police Department was found wiretapping the US President on behalf of China. Imagine that. Because this is what happened here. The European Commission is the executive branch and the head of the executive branch in Europe. Airbus has filed a criminal complaint already against the German BND for this behavior, citing industrial espionage and criminal behavior. But we knew this already. We knew that the main goal of this spying is not to catch terrorists, it is not to prevent crime, it is industrial espionage and political economic domination. We knew that. I don't know why the world seems so surprised about it. Medical records and information hygiene. The so-called Sorenson database, a database of over 100,000 DNA samples supposed to be used for genealogy research and family research, now owned by Ancestry.com, has been found to be leaking like a sieve to the police, or rather, they have been handing their DNA samples routinely to the Idaho Police Department, despite promises to the contrary, which is clearly stated in their consent form. So they've been collecting DNA for research, and without consent, these samples have been shared routinely with the police. Here is where information hygiene comes in yet again. If you're sharing your data with somebody, it is no longer your data. Do not share data if you do not want it published. Your data, your most trusted personal data, has about the same function as a pen at the office. The instant you hand it to somebody else, your ownership of that data disappears. Information hygiene is crucial. If you don't want your data to end up in bad hands, do not give it to anybody. There are several medical services that claim that they de-identify or anonymize DNA samples. These services cannot be trusted and cannot be believed. De-identifying or anonymizing, that's hard. That's on the same scale as hard cryptography. There's maybe 24 people in the world who understand how to do that. And your healthcare provider is not one of them. They think they can anonymize, and it is not what happens. It's usually trivial to re-identify samples that have gone through such amateurish anonymization. The US and genealogy is not the only case where DNA samples have leaked. In 1975, Sweden started a DNA sample database to track medical research and hereditary diseases, specifically PKU, a sensitivity to certain compounds. Now, the problem was that this became a leak to prosecutors and police, who went and just fetched DNA samples, identified DNA samples from everybody born after 1975 in Sweden. So Swedish police had access to the largest DNA database in the world of everybody 40 years of age or younger. That later stopped, but it went on for a long time. And this shows again, everything is abused and all data leaks. All data will be used against you, without exception. Which brings us to data retention. This week, the Slovak Constitutional Court makes the Slovak Republic join a growing number of countries in Europe that has struck down data retention as wholly, fully, and uncompromisingly unconstitutional. Collecting data about people's correspondence in bulk, warrantlessly, when they are not under suspicion of a crime, is totally in violation of fundamental rights. The European Court of Justice found this in April of 2014, last year, when they struck down a directive requiring such data retention in all member states of the European Union. So the European Court of Justice struck down the directive and went further than that. They said that this directive is so violatory it has never existed. They struck it down retroactively. However, they did not strike down national laws from the European level. They did not strike down member state laws from the federal European level. And that's where we are right now. The member states have to strike down their own laws. And going back to Sweden, we see that authority requests for people's communications patterns, their most private communications patterns, have increased 7-fold in just the past 6 months. They are now up to 10,000 requests a month, up from 1,500 a month in this year alone. And that's just from one telecom provider and ISP. They are being requested for the most petty fines crimes. They were told to be used, or motivated to be used, justified to be used to hunt down terrorism and organized serious crime. Instead, they are being used to hunt down the most petty of crimes. We said this would happen. Nobody believed us. This is the expression, "we told you so," is becoming a bit tiring, to be honest. So the ISP and telco provider Tele2 has challenged this in the European Court of Justice, which means that the European Court of Justice will rule on whether national member state laws mandating data retention are also unconstitutional. But that'll be in a year or two. Until then, the violations continue. Your privacy remains your own responsibility, frankly. I'm Rick Falkvinge, and this is Liberties Report. Visit our sponsor, Private Internet Access. Good night.
This report is presented by Private Internet Access.
Liberties Report is produced using exclusively free software.